Okay. Salam sejahtera, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Dive Log podcast. I'm your co-host, Adam. Today we have this very educational episode coming up, and I hope you guys will look forward to it.
Hi guys, my name is Dicky. I just want to give a shout out to one of our listeners. So we officially have a Dive Log podcast mark right now. It's from Keda Mahashim, our loyal listener, She bought us this mug, so thank you to Keda.
Thank you so much, Keda. She saw our guest drinking right from the container. Like, let's say Megan was drinking 100 plus, and she saw it, and then she thought like, maybe these guys need some cups in their podcast. So which is why she made the mug for us.
Yeah.
And then just to show you guys again, it has a logo with it, with our logo as well. Looks awesome, yeah.
Really nice. Thank you again, Keda.
So for today's episode, going to be an educational one, especially for those of you who would like to get into scuba diving or a brand new diver. This will be the podcast for you, I would reckon.
Yeah.
So for our guest, I would like to introduce him a little bit. He is someone unexpected. When I got to the island, I got to know who he is. He's actually a best friend of someone there. He went to the island as a volunteer, and he was on the island for about a week. He was on the island for a bit more than a month, actually. And then I got to know him quite well. We stayed at the same place. Well, different room, but same place. He was next to me. We got involved with a little bit of work as well. And then coincidentally, he got interested in scuba diving and decided to do his open water course. Thus, our journey of getting him to become a scuba diver began. And this is exactly what we're going to talk about on this episode here at Dive Log. We're going to discuss about his journey taking the PADI open water course. I would like to introduce you guys to Luke.
Hello, everybody.
Hey,
My
Luke.
name is Luke.
Welcome to the podcast.
It's a
Welcome
pleasure.
to the podcast,
It's a pleasure.
Luke.
It's a pleasure, people. My name is Luke, 18. I live in Kuala Lumpur for the time being, about to go study. And as Adam has mentioned, I did spend about a month and a week in Tioman Islands. It was my first introduction to living on an island and also my first introduction to scuba diving. So it was a trip, definitely. And I went there as a volunteer, did a bit of work, and in exchange I read the benefits and they were like, you get to do your scuba diving license. And I was like, oh, what's scuba diving, right? And the first couple of days was quite a drag, actually, but once I got into it, I got really, really into it, because I don't know, now that I haven't dived in about 3 weeks, almost to a month, I kind of feel like a fish out of water. I need to go back there, man. I need to go back in there. I really do. Scuba diving in its essence is something that I feel like every human on this earth should at least experience once, man.
Okay.
Because we're not built to breathe underwater, but all this technology has brought us down there, and why not try it, right?
Yeah. Was it your first time being on Tioman, or?
It wasn't my first time being on Tioman, because I have been coming to the island quite frequently with like my family as like a family trip. So that's like memang the island that my family decides to go to every year.
Okay.
And then I just somehow, some way got a job volunteering there because of my friend Andre, my best friend Andre. Shout out Andre, I love you so much. Yeah, and while I was there, I got into scuba diving. I really didn't know what a dive center was, and because I was reading and they were like, okay, you'll be working at a dive center. I'm like, what's a dive center? You know what I mean? What do they do at the dive center? So upon arrival, I was just like, this looks so weird. Like, why is everybody carrying these big, bulky iron tanks around, and they're carrying all these hoses around, and they've got all these things on their face? And it was quite overwhelming for me, because like I said, I have zero understanding of what scuba diving was, essentially. My first initial dive, well, it wasn't really in the ocean. It was, we did confined water. That kind of sense of being underwater, to me, kind of felt so zen. When the first time I went underwater, it kind of felt so zen. Because prior to that, I've been doing a lot of like snorkeling, a lot of like free diving, just, with friends, going down up to like 5-7 meters, having fun, seeing things. I never really got the chance to spend like more than at least 2 minutes underwater.
Okay. But you said you've been to the island, you've been to Tumen specifically more than once. You have been going to the island quite frequently.
Yeah.
What was the activity that you normally do when you go there? So I assume you go there for holiday, for school breaks and stuff like that. There must be certain activities that you have been going back to Tumen for, right?
Yeah.
So that's one. And then the second thing that I would like to know is, while you were there prior to this last visit, have you not seen people diving, and did that not, got you intrigued about diving?
Okay. Well, prior to my visit there in the last month, when my family would go there every year, we mostly kind of just went there to be there. We didn't really do much activities. We went there just to seep in the island. But the last time we went together as a family, we did do island hopping, where we went like on like a little boat, and we went island hopping to like Coral Island, Chebe, Soyak and all that, and just to snorkel, Batu Malang and all that. So yeah, that was great. When I first initially came to the island, yes, I saw people diving. I saw people walking out the water carrying these big bulky things of iron, and apparently they have air in them, like what? And I was definitely intrigued, but not intrigued enough to actually take the time and understand it, which was quite ignorant of me, I feel like now, because this is so cool. I feel like has become quite a big part in my life that I want to pursue, you know what I mean?
You did mention that you had the opportunity, you were given the opportunity to do your open water course. That's how you decided to get into scuba diving. But prior to this, do you actually have any interest when it comes to scuba diving?
Well, specifically with scuba diving, I think probably nothing struck an interest in me about scuba diving prior to this. But I did have a very big love for the ocean ever since I was a child, but just nature in general, because I've always been intrigued by like geoscience, geology, and oceanography and all these things. So yeah, I did have a foundation of loving the ocean. So I guess coming into scuba diving just kind of brightened that a little bit more.
Diki, prior to him doing his open water course, right, he's already studying the nudie branch book that we had at the dive shop.
Nice.
Luke here was very intrigued, or maybe still is, with nudie branch.
Yeah.
Is it because of the name, or is it because of...
No, so for me, I got there, right? And I'm thinking like people scuba dive to see big things, right? I never really understood why you would go underwater to see all these macro life. So one of the locals come up to me, one of the locals at the dive shop. Actually, shout out to Linda, who brought me that book in the first place. I saw it. I'm like, what is this? Look at this and tell me that this is not an alien. Right? And they all come in all these different species, all these different colors and
shapes and
sizes, and they mate so weirdly, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. So especially on land animals, and I've never gotten into really like sea creatures. When I did get to understand what a nudie was and kind of study a bit about nudies, it was really interesting to me, because I feel like my knowledge about nudies is still like this much, but I've already read so much, and that just goes to show that there's so much to know about them. Kind of like the first thing that really intrigued me about going underwater, like sea life and sea creatures, and nudies was the first one.
Diki, we have been diving for so many years. I really enjoy talking to beginner divers, and also especially people who are doing open water, because you and me, we have been in and out for so many years. We take a lot of things for granted.
We do.
For instance, like when Luke mentioned that he was actually quite interested and intrigued with people, carrying heavy tanks and this and that. And then also his interest for nudie branch and all these things. And then his enthusiasm. It kind of reminded me when we started scuba diving, right? Now, I don't say we are not excited or interested. We still do. We still enjoy the sport, which is why we are still in scuba diving, and of course having this podcast, right? But then again, at times we need to be reminded what scuba diving is all about and why we started scuba diving in the first place. Which is why I am actually looking forward to this podcast, talking to Luke about this, to reminiscence the time when we
experience we
were,
had
you know.
at the
Yeah,
beginning of our
exactly.
dive career or diving experience.
Right.
So speaking about beginning, of course, everyone have to go through this process, which is to taking the open water course.
Certification
To be
course,
more to be more specific, Luke did the PADI open water course with B&J Dive Center. So Luke, would you mind telling us and the audience as well, what is the course and how do you go about?
PADI open water course. I feel like there's so much information about this already, but I'll go off of what I've already experienced. I was told in the beginning that there's like all these different steps and these levels and certifications for me to climb up, and I was told that open water was the first one, and I'm like, okay, by all means, let's go ahead. I feel like the open water course just permits you and allows you to be and prepares you actually to be comfortable enough to go underwater with a buddy or with a guide and actually enjoy your time instead of spending your time underwater trying to correct problems that you could have resolved with this certification. Because this certification prepares you for, I feel like half the time, for at least most of the time, I was just preparing for emergencies that I've never had before. But I'm glad that I have that information installed in my brain and it's ingrained in my mind. So I know that now if anything were to go down, I'm prepared. I think for the most part, the open water course kind of made me feel more secure with scuba diving because I know like the procedures and the things to do when something does eventually end up going bad or an emergency happens underwater or on the surface. At least I know the bare minimum, the surface of what to do and how to do it. Yeah.
How many days was the course and how's the itinerary like for you?
The course was for 4 days. And my instructor was instructor Ko. I love him so much. I love Ko. He's such a sweetheart. He's never given me a hard time during the course because I was so afraid because I went in having all these dive masters and all these instructors telling me like, oh, it's hard. They were just basically amping me up. They're like, oh, it's hard. You're gonna see all these things. Like you're gonna get terrified. But then Ko is like, it's okay. You're safe. And it was a great experience. I feel like if I hadn't gotten the instructor that I had gotten, it would have been a different kind of story. But over the 4 days, the first day we did the swim tests, where I had to basically just float on water for like 10 minutes and swim around. Afterwards, we obviously did confined water 1 and 2, but I think we didn't have that much time on the first day because in my case my course mates were late to the island, so we only got to do our swim test on the first day, so it was a bit prolonged. So the next day Ko really put us to work. We had to do the confined water 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. We did confined water 1 and 2 on the second day, 3 and 4 on the third day, and the last dive, the boat dive that we had to do. Not really sure what that dive's called actually. Yeah, but we did do a boat dive on the fourth day, which was at dive site Last Frontier dive site in Tioman Islands, and that was amazing, man. I've been on a couple of boat dives, and I feel like that's still one of my favorites.
And also, prior to you starting your practical training, you need to do an e-learning theory session before the beginning of your course, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about that one?
Well, hey, don't take my advice because I really procrastinated it. Well, I wouldn't say I procrastinated, man, because I was on an island. I was doing things every day, you know what I mean? I got up and immediately went into salt water. So forgive me for not having the time to go on my phone and do my e-learning. But however, the e-learning is quite important, obviously, to make sure that you know what you're signing up for and to ensure that you know what you're going to be facing as soon as you go into the actual course. Don't be like me and procrastinate it. Do your e-learning, actually read every question and go through every article that they have in there and watch every video that they do have there, because these things are important, man. You're going underwater, and humans aren't made to breathe underwater. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong.
The exact word of what Dicky is going to say. And Luke just now did mention about confined water as well as open water. Dicky, would you mind explain to the audience what is confined water and what is open water?
Oh, that's a tough question. But no. So basically, well, let me just also recap what what Luke had done. So obviously, when a candidate or when someone wants to get certified, you will enroll yourself with a dive center. The dive center will then, do the necessary paperwork with you, blah blah blah. Going through your medical form to see if you're fit for the activities and all that kind of stuff, because we need to really make sure that the candidates are fit for diving. You're not having any critical illness or whatever before you begin with the course. And right after that, obviously, we would assign codes for you to be doing your studies. So these studies are normally given to you ahead of time so that you are able to do studies on your own, on your free time. And once this is all done, paperwork is done, check your medical, you finish with your theories, get you to watch videos as well. And then the fun begins, where you get into the water. And before we can bring you out into the open ocean or in depth, we will obviously teach you on the skills that need to be, you need to master. So this is where the skills are done. So it is a training where we normally call confined water training. The confined water, hence the word, it's confined. You are not exposed to the elements or very minimized elements. So you are in a pool-like condition, reference to water movements, visibility, and all that kind of stuff, depths, and so on. Some dive centers are able, dive centers on the island that has got swimming pool. That's an added advantage. So that really helps a lot, especially with students that have got some, I would not say water phobia, but you have concerns about what's in the ocean. So we start off with bringing them into the pool. So they get to, have more confidence and make it easier for them to grab whatever they need to master, right? And after completing confined water 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is mostly done in its individual dives, and you will progress into open water. So open water there's 4 open waters where you will be brought into the sea. So it could be from shore and from boat. So normally the first 2 dives is diving off the shore or from the shore. And then the dive number 3 and 4, so the last 2 dive is normally going to be done out in open waters where we go to dive sites, that has got elements to it, right? Currents and waves and blah, blah, blah. We'll be diving off a boat, getting into the water from a boat and all that kind of.
Yes, and I have further questions in regards to the medical form. What kind of questions does the medical form has? And also, what are the considerations for someone walking into open water course, right? What kind of, let's say, condition that are not ideal for someone to do an open water course?
Well, first of all, that will be determined by the physician, right? But in generally, if you have critical illness, like if you have any major operations before, respiratory related stuff like that, pregnancy maybe, heart issues, these are the things that the physician would either decide whether or not you can or not go for the course, depending on how serious it can be, right? Asthmatic as well. If you're really bad asthmatic and then you are dependent on medications and blah 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 and drugs and so on, so you might not be approved for diving. Again, it depends on the dive physician to whether or not let you undertake the course itself.
Having the symptoms and the illness that you mentioned does not necessarily mean you are not able to do the course. You just need to get the clearance from the doctor to say that, okay, you are fine, you can do the course. It's not the end of the road. You just need to seek a physician for advice and also a clearance for you to be able to continue or start the course. Luke, now that you have done it right, I have this very popular questions that a lot of people actually ask us. Do you think that someone that does not know how to swim be able to pass or take this course?
That's really funny, man. Because I've been getting this specific question asked to me often, and I don't really know what to answer people. I'm sure you guys already know because you guys are more experienced divers, right? But I think coming from me, especially with the 10-minute swim test that you have to do literally initially before anything, before you even put on gear, you have to go swim in a pool or the ocean for about 10 minutes and float, and that's a part of the course. I would assume no. I would assume you would have to start and learn how to swim and control yourself, your breathing in the water on the surface first before you even really think about going deep into diving. Because I figured that when you're under the water, you don't really swim like how you would swim on the surface, you know? You don't really use your hands. But for the sake of the course, I think one definitely should need to know how to swim.
To follow up, Dicky, what are the requirements? What are the skill requirements? I mean, the swim test. Would you kindly elaborate more specifically about the swim test? And are there any other standards and procedures that someone need to know prior to going into this open water course?
Okay, so going back to that question, right? Whether or not it is recommended for people who have no swimming ability, no swimming experience, to enroll themselves for scuba diving. So let's put it this way. You're out there, you're on the boat, you're at sea, you're on the island. How would you get from one point to the other? You need to swim, right? If you're out there in the ocean and you need to go back to land, if you don't know how to float, if you don't know how to swim, then you're just going to stay there. How long can you stay there for,
Exactly.
right? Yes, the rule does not really requires you to be able to swim, but it says minimum must snorkel, fin swim. So essentially this is actually snorkeling lah. If you have any snorkeling experience, then you would need to just snorkel for about 300 meters and you will meet the performance requirements. Other than that, if you're a swimmer, you need to be able to swim a minimum of 200 meters. There's no time limit. There's no specific techniques required. You can do backstroke, butterfly, freestyle, whatever. As long as you get from one point to the other, you cover 200 meter distance, you're done. On top of that, you need to be able to float for 10 minutes. So these are the basic swimming ability that you need to have to be able to pass through open water training.
It's funny because you say that one doesn't necessarily have to know how to swim, but then one also needs to be able to float for 10 minutes. So I assume that people who can't swim can't float. I think so. Yeah. Don't you feel so?
Well, I think you definitely need to get all those requirements done, but it does not mean that you need to be a good swimmer.
No.
Yeah, as long as you can get those things that Dicky mentioned done, you pass. As he said, there's no time limit.
No time limit.
You can take a day
Yeah.
to swim 200 meters. If you can do that, you pass everything already.
Yeah.
If a day at 200 meters, that is, you're basically passing the float test and everything together at once. But back to the question, you don't have to be a good swimmer.
Yeah.
You just need to know how to swim. The reason why I asked this question is because you see, even yourself, you get a lot of this kind of questions from a lot of the people. For some reasons, people just think that you don't really need to in order to get into the open water course. Some people think that the instructor themselves will teach them how to do it during the course, during the open water course. I would like to stress that open water course is strictly a scuba diving course.
Yeah.
It's not a swimming course. So you need to come in
Prepared.
to the course and be prepared and knowing how to swim. And of course, you need to have your medical clearance. So medical clearance is one, knowing how to float and knowing how to swim 200 meters or snorkel 300. Is it 300 or 400?
300.
300. So these are the three requirements that you need coming into the course. What about age restriction, or is there any other restrictions that people need to consider about going into this open water course?
You can start from the age of 10. Upon completion, you will be awarded with a junior open water diver certification. Yeah.
Is that any different than the regular open water?
Yeah, you have depth limit.
Right.
Different depth limit, yeah.
So a junior's depth limit would be what, 10?
No, 12.
And do you need supervision from a dive pro in order to dive?
Yeah, 10, 11, yes.
Okay, so basically that is the outline and the summary about the open water course. It's a course that enabled you to start to become a certified open water diver. This certification will allow you to dive at most places in the world. As long as you have the cert, you can start diving. At certain places, you are required to show your cert in order to rent tanks, to rent equipments prior to going diving. And I would like to also mention something, that being an open water diver, it means that you can actually dive independently. Of course, with another buddy. Buddy system is quite important. So you can dive with another buddy without the supervision of a dive pro.
Correct.
So basically, you can go diving without a dive master. You can go diving without an instructor.
Yep.
As soon as you get that, the open water course, you are certified, you can do that just by you and your buddy alone. You don't need a dive guide. Of course, providing that you are confident doing it yourself, and then you feel competent walking out of the course and doing this on your own. There are a lot of debates out there, which is why I'm asking you guys this question. Swimming is one thing, and then this dive professional guiding is another thing. I think maybe further down the road, there might be some questions regarding that. Some of these are not actually written inside the standard and procedure as well. It's just that people ask, different places do different things, and they have different rules and procedures. So it depends on where you come from. The best way is, of course, to check with the dive centers that you'll be diving with, or you are taking their services. Luke, you were about to say something.
Yeah, no. I figured that when you say that the open water certification allows you to dive anywhere in the world at any dive center, and rent out tanks and go and dive with your buddy alone. And I feel like that shouldn't be a debate at all. Because for one has paid to be certified, and one has gone through certification. And if one is confident enough to go into the water with just a buddy and without an instructor or a dive master, I feel like that shouldn't be up for debate. I feel like that's up to their own will, and they should definitely go, and by all means. I mean, then again, if you're diving at some place new where you've never dove before, so having a guide, having a dive master is pretty cool, because they can take you to all their spots, their dive sites and all that, and show you all these things that are native to the certain island or native to the certain reef, and it's cool. But I feel like if one is already confident enough to dive with just a buddy, by all means, shouldn't be a debate.
Unfortunately, Luke, in our region, a lot of things are different.
Yeah.
To begin with, most diver thinks that they require a guide to do their fun dives.
Right.
Which is why I asked this question to begin with. Certain part of the world, the dive master do not go diving with you. They might go onto the boat with you. They might set up the thing. They might plan the dive for you. They might organize the logistic and everything. But they do not go into the water with you unless it's necessary. For instance, maybe let's say a scuba diver has a disability, then maybe the dive master will join the dive. But in a perfect normal situation, in that part of the world, the dive master do not get into the water. They will just stay on the boat on the lookout for divers, and then of course do what he or she needs to do.
The logistics,
do not get into the. But in our region, it's different. Everyone thinks that when you go diving, fun dive to be more specific, it needs to have a dive master, it needs to have an instructor.
That may be harsh, but the ideology is that they need to be babysit.
Okay, and why do you feel like that's into our region? Why does our region of divers feel like that one diver who is not of a dive master certification or not of an instructor going fun diving would need to be babysitted underwater?
That's just how the certified divers are behaving. This is what they expect of the service that they expect from a dive center. So this is why when you look at it back again, right? Yes, it says that if you're not a good swimmer, as long as you can swim with mask, snorkel, and fin, good snorkeling, you meet the performance requirement for certification.
Right.
Then you need to also ask yourself, at the end of this certification, I'm eligible to go out diving anywhere around the world with a certified diver, with a certified PADI. Are you confident enough? Where does the confidence comes from?
Yeah.
Ability of swimming.
Yeah.
no water phobia, confidence in water, familiarization of your equipment and the environment. These are the thing. And that to say, it's not there with the divers that we have here.
Right.
Simply because they have got limited swimming abilities or confidence. It differs if they are a swimmer.
Adam and Dicky, you guys have been diving for most likely longer than I've been alive. So I would like to ask you guys, right? Has it always been this way?
Yeah.
Yeah? Ever since you guys started diving, it's always been this way? It's quite unfortunate because I feel like, especially with the with scuba diving, well, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. Scuba diving is definitely an expensive sport, and it is expensive. But I'm saying, I would imagine that for the people who do pay for the certification and end up certified, why would you not want that freedom of just being able to go into the water and see things for yourself and have your own experiences?
It's just because they are not confident enough. You see, then they want to have an instructor with them or dive master with them.
Because they want that security.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is what it is.
Right.
I mean, that's just...
Right. It's just how it's been.
Yes.
Unfortunate.
And there's a lot of factors as to why that happened. I would not want to go in depth in there because, that would definitely offend a lot of people. So, let's not go there.
A lot of the scuba diver nowadays, after taking their courses and being certified as a diver, regardless of what courses that they are doing, right? A lot of them came out from the course not feeling competent, not feeling confident about their skills yet. One of the reasons is because a lot of the courses now are crash courses. Open water is a 4-day course, as we discussed just now. But it all also depends on the abilities of the students, abilities of the candidates. For instance, what Dicky said, if you come into the course knowing how to swim, you are already confident in the water even before the course. So walking out of the course shouldn't be a problem. It'll be easy because even without scuba gear, you know how to handle yourself in the water. The confidence is already there even before the course itself. But if you're going in, feeling a bit weary and then feeling you have a lot of uncertainties, and then, of course, it's the instructor's job to eliminate those things and making sure that you get to the level where you can become certified. As I said, a lot of the courses now are crash courses. The instructors will do whatever it takes to get you to the level where you are able to pass the course. And that is the bare minimum.
Right.
But, I mean, you guys are already certified. You are already certified. You have been on the island for a month and you've done a couple of dives. You know that it takes more than the bare minimum in order to become, I won't say a good diver, a comfortable diver.
Where you go and dive and actually enjoy the dive and not spend half the time floating back up, right?
I would say that to become a comfortable diver, of course, this is very subjective. It's different from people to people. What I mean is, right, you are able to jump into the water and do what it needs in order to enjoy the dive. Being autonomous diver, like when you are sinking down, you maybe know how to control your breath. You know how to control your inflator without even thinking about it. It's basically like when we are driving. When you get into the car, you already know what to do. You don't even think about it anymore. Without even batting an eye. That is when you become comfortable at something. I don't expect everyone to be like that. Obviously, it takes a few more dives or a couple more trips in order to get there. But coming out of the course, you need to have a certain level of comfortability in order to, become a certified diver, I would dare to say. Most people, I won't say most, a lot of the people that are certified nowadays, the one that goes here thinking that the course is a holiday. To be frank with you, it is not a holiday. When you go and do a course, it is a course that you need to fully focus on doing it and, of course, getting the best and the most out of the course. But some people do not think that way. They think that they are there, I'm on a holiday, I'm going there on an island vacation. So they will just do the bare minimum. And then, of course, they're coming out certified without having the confidence to be a certified diver, even though they are certified.
It's funny because I feel like a lot of people walk into this course, specifically this course, the PADI Open Water course, with kind of a mindset of that it is a holiday. First of all, it requires the bare minimum. Like Dicky said, like you already have 3 different alternatives if you can't swim. And it requires the bare minimum. So people feel like they can just put in the bare minimum. But then again, I feel like if somebody who is trying to really get into scuba diving, right, it's really important that you actually really take it in and live it through and actually go through. Because if you really treat it like a holiday and do the bare minimum, right, it can put you through a lot of stress. Some of the skills are quite hard, and you can't do the next skill without doing this first skill perfectly. And you can't just move on. You can't just, like, your instructor can't just can't just close one eye. Some of the skills could really put you down, like, really under stress. For example, I remember when I had I had my first kind of like it was not really like a full-blown panic attack underwater, but I did freak out a little bit. It was because so the open water course, when I was doing confined water, they had the mask removal and replacement.
Mask remove, replace, yeah.
Mask removal and replacement. I had to clear my mask. Okay, so I removed it, replaced it, but it wasn't clearing. I don't know what I was doing wrong. I think I was just not pressing hard enough. I wasn't opening. I didn't have a big enough gap. It wasn't clearing. I did it 3-4 times. I opened my eyes. I just still saw water. So I'm doing this, and then there was water going up my nose, and I couldn't see, and my breathing wasn't regulated. I was like, waited, and then I'm like, why am I doing this, right? So I had a little bit of a panic attack, and I straight up my instructor was holding onto my shoulder, and I just tapped him, and I was like, you need to go up. I'm scared. So we went up, and then afterwards I was fine. I came back down like literally after a minute, did it just fine. But that just goes to show that if you kind of walk into this with an arrogant mindset, knowing that, oh, scuba diving's easy, you could do it. Anybody could do it. It's true, anybody could do it. But it's a skill that you don't have yet. So you have to come into diving knowing that it is something that you don't know nothing about, you know? So you can't treat it like a holiday, obviously. You can't treat it like it's easy. Yeah, because it can really throw you under the bus.
It's not easy.
It's not. It's not. It's not at all.
It's not difficult.
It's not difficult, but it is still not easy.
There are procedures and things that you have to do in order for you to make this course not easy, not hard, but smooth sailing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would say it requires commitment.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely. Because especially for like a lot of people, I think they had to let go of a lot of vices coming into diving, because obviously diving doesn't permit you to the use of like alcohol and tobacco before you dive. For the people who do tend to indulge in these vices, it becomes quite kind of like a side challenge coming into diving, understanding that, okay, I'm gonna have to commit to diving, knowing that I can't consume the vices that I usually indulge in on a regular basis. To me, I feel like that's quite strong for diving, and especially divers who come into it being like smokers and drinkers, you know, on a regular basis. It's great that it kind of holds you back from that and kind of forces you to commit into it. Yeah.
I've never seen people drink as much as scuba divers.
And smoke
That's
less
true.
scuba divers.
No, that's very true. No, because no, don't get me wrong. Divers drink a lot, right? They drink like fish because they're all sailormen, right? But the thing is, what I can respect about them is if they understand that they have a morning dive the next morning at 6:30, 7:30 a.m., they don't go ahead and get and really indulge into it. You know what I mean? And go as far to say that some instructors wouldn't even drink at all. Wouldn't even go to the bar that night. They just sleep in. You know, I got a morning dive tomorrow. What are you talking about? Why would I go out drinking? And that's what I definitely respect with especially with some of the instructors. You know what I mean?
Discipline.
The discipline. Yeah. That's what I definitely can admire.
So coming out of this course, Luke, would you mind telling us what have you learned? To be more specifically, maybe starting from the knowledge to skills, and then of course the usage of the equipment. What have you learned out of the 4 days?
So the first day, as soon as I was enrolled into this program, they brought me into the store where they keep all their equipment and showed me what everything did and how everything works. And this is your regulator, this is your LPI, your BCD, and everything is your wetsuit. Very intrigued, actually. I was very intrigued. I was like, whoa, there's so much to think about before going into the water. And these are your air tanks, and there's different types of like tanks. You know, you have your regular air, you have your nitrox, and it's like, it was a bit overwhelming, definitely. But after I got to know the equipment and actually got it on me and started actually using it, I kind of realized like, oh, it's just a couple things, man. It's just this and this and that, and I don't really know. As long as I have that intact and ready, and I'll be fine. You know what I mean? Coming into the skills, like came into this program knowing already like just one skill, and that was clearing my mask, because I would go snorkeling often, and I would obviously need to clear my mask often, go free diving and stuff. A lot of the skills for me was quite smooth sailing. For one, I found to be like, okay, I'm gonna be humble and say that my buoyancy is terrible. Like everybody else who starts off into diving, my buoyancy was absolutely terrible. Especially when I was doing the neutral buoyancy test, the test underwater, in open water, right? Yeah. So I was doing that. I kept floating up to the surface, and that was in like 5 to 7 meters. I kept floating up to the surface, and it kind of pissed me off because I was like, why am I floating up to the surface? I'm under the water, right? Again, buoyancy is something that is subjective to each person, I feel, because everybody kind of has their own. Well, there's obviously certain skills and techniques that you have to kind of take in to control your buoyancy, like, you know, breathing techniques and all these things. But, you know, everybody inflates their BCD just a little bit less or a little bit more than everybody else. You know what I mean? Everybody has their own way of achieving neutral buoyancy. But for me, I feel like it is something that you really have to just look into yourself and do a lot of diving before you actually get comfortable with your buoyancy, where you can just stay still and in one place under the water and be completely buoyant. Yeah, but besides that, with the mask skills and weight removing, BCD removal and replacement, all these things are kind of was just there to prepare me for if anything were to go wrong. I feel like that was my favorite part of the course, because it prepared me for emergencies, and it prepared me for if trouble happens and if things can go wrong. And I needed that security because I had confidence in myself coming into this course. You know I can swim, I know I can dive. But what if something goes wrong with the equipment? What if somebody else I'm with has a problem? And this is what the course prepared me for. Honestly, that's my favorite part, because having that security going into the water, knowing that, hey, if my friend had an issue underwater, I can tend to it. And I don't have to, go about finding somebody else and reaching out for help for somebody. Like, I myself can handle that. I think that was my favorite part of the course, yeah, definitely.
Do you remember the content of the e-learning? What did you learn from your e-learning?
Honestly, all I remember about the e-learning was I passed. I passed.
I know. The physics aspect of.
Oh yes. Where we learnt about how pressure changes and how air expands and all that going underwater. Yeah, that was the least interesting thing to me, because I don't really like looking at numbers and demographics. But however, it was a piece of information that I am glad I know, and I'm glad that it was in the contact. It's information that's important to you, especially coming into diving. Not if somebody didn't know that, the pressure underwater is greater, and as far as you go deeper, it becomes greater. If one didn't know that and went into the water and went down and didn't equalize and their ears popped, and that's a whole nother issue. You know what I mean? About the physics aspect of diving, I'm glad that it was introduced to divers early on. I think it was kind of the first thing that, as soon as you log into the ebook, it's kind of like the first thing that you learn about. For me, I think that's great, because that's basic information that every diver should know.
Other than physics, you also learn about procedure, 5-point descent, 5-point ascent, your body check system, how to don your gears, how to use your gears, and all basically it's the manual for the equipment. It teaches you how to use your gears and the different types of gears that is available for you.
And how to care for them as well.
Dicky, as a course director, would you mind explaining to us, when you're teaching open water, right? from start to finish. Can you explain like the skills that you I know it's a long list, right? Thank you so much for watching to the end of part 1 of our conversation with Luke. You are awesome. Kindly do subscribe to get notification of our latest content on our channel. I would also like to inform you guys that I will be participating in the Malaysian International Dive Expo 2025 happening at MyTech on the 13th to 15th of June. If you see me around, please do come and say hi, and I will be delighted to meet all of you guys. At the meantime, you can go to our episode list to check out our other content about scuba diving. I'll see you guys soon. Here's a preview of the next episode.
And all of these skills is going to be brought into the open water session where you will almost like a scenario, right? So you have this dive that you need to do, and
I thought I was just some sort of diving wizard. I just thought it was in my genes. I thought
water baby lah.
I thought my cousin was Aquaman. You know, because like I'm
Going into an open water course, as an instructor, what do you expect from the candidates, your students?
Nothing really, except when you come for the course,